The Book of Lamentations. Small book, seemingly out of order here in our overview of the writings, but man, this book has a lot to tell us today. Let's go ahead and get started on the Book of Lamentations. And so, before though, let me just talk about why we are going over Lamentations now. So, you can see here that Lamentations is in the writings order of when it's, or is in the writings column in the Hebrew order. And there is a specific reason for that. And that is because this book is grouped with, you can see this little box here, with Ruth, Song, Ecclesiastes, and Esther. And these are called I believe it's the Chamash Megalot, which means the five scrolls. And that is because these books are typically read in conjunction with one another. It's a beautiful picture, and we'll see here maybe one of the reasons why that is the case. So let's go ahead and get started, but I wanted you to see why we're going over Lamentations now, as opposed to maybe considering it when we went over the prophets, because it's often attributed to the book of Jeremiah, or coming from Jeremiah. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started here as we consider the book of Lamentations. So first, you can see here the Hebrew title is much different than, say, what we would have in English. Echa. And what that means is literally like how, or even you can say why. And that gives us a great introduction to this book here. Sorry, I'm turning to Lamentations right now. You can see it gives us like this great introduction to the book, because this book is almost like, how could these things happen? That is, how can the destruction of Jerusalem happen? Again, we're kind of switching around here. But you can see here the Greek title, Oranoi, means laments or lamentations, and that's really where we get the book from. We call it Lamentations, not how, right? Literary flow. The book is small, right? Only 5 chapters, and you can see this flow to it. Destruction, Yahweh judges. At the heart of the book, though, is God's goodness, and it concludes with a prayer to the Lord. Chronology. This book had to have been written after 586 BC, since the book considers the destruction of Jerusalem, which itself took place, the ultimate destruction took place in 586. And again, as far as what I tell when I've read Lamentations, there is no author. There is no, hey, my name is Bill, and I'm the one who wrote this book. But it's often considered to come from the book of Jeremiah. And so that's why it's, I think, in the canon is because of that. So, all right, let's go ahead and look at big picture stuff here of Lamentations. So you can see here this bottom right picture, that is a just a cool painting, maybe not cool, sad, painting of the destruction of Jerusalem at the hands of the Babylonians. So with that, what's going on here in Lamentations? Well, Lamentations considers the destruction of Jerusalem at the hands of the Babylonians approximately 586 BC. So we can see here, this is how the book begins. How, that's why the title is Echa. How lonely sits the city, Jerusalem, that was full of people. How like a widow she has become, she who was great among the nations. She who was a princess among the provinces has become a slave. She weeps bitterly in the night, with tears on her cheeks. Among all her lovers she has none to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her, they have become her enemies. So this introduction to the book situates the whole book in general. This book is about the destruction of Jerusalem, how Jerusalem has been destroyed, and how she was left to be destroyed, essentially, and how she was high and mighty, and now she's done. What's interesting, though, is Lamentations, this is Roman numeral number 2, it is written in a beautiful acrostic fashion. That means that each verse in Lamentations, chapters 1 through 4, begins with a successive Hebrew letter. So you'll have verse 1, which is Aleph. The first word begins with the letter Aleph, which is the first letter in Hebrew. Verse 2 begins with the letter Beit, which is the second letter. So chapter 1 acrostic, chapter 2 acrostic, chapter 3, and chapter 4 are all acrostic. So there's been a lot of thought given to this book, and just beautiful literary features that we don't often consider with Hebrew literature is very apparent in this book. So what are some big takeaways here with Lamentations? So, big picture, Lamentations attributes the destruction of the northern and southern kingdoms to the sin of the people. Full stop. Lamentations 1. Jerusalem sinned grievously, therefore she became filthy. All who honored her despised her, for they've seen her nakedness. She herself groans and turned her face away. Her uncleanness was in her skirts. She took no thought of her future, therefore her fall is terrible. O Lord, behold my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. Essentially, the author of Lamentations attributes the destruction of Jerusalem, or he compares Jerusalem to a prostitute. And because of that, she's been destroyed. And he talks about the northern kingdom in the same way, but it is unquestionably because of Jerusalem's, the northern and the southern kingdoms, idolatry, their sin, that they've been destroyed. And yet, the lamenter, as I call him, he ultimately holds on to the goodness, mercy, and grace of Yahweh. Let me go back to how the book is structured here. At the heart of the book is the goodness of Yahweh. This book is a very strategically structured book. And at the heart of the middle of the book is this goodness and mercy and grace of Yahweh. Lamentations 3:22. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. So in the midst of chaos and judgment and destruction and sadness, Lamentations, at the heart of the book, rests this hope, this trust in the goodness of the Lord. And you know what? This really helps us to understand why Lamentations is part of this Chamash Megalot, these 5 writings. Because at the heart of all of those books is the steadfast love and the goodness of the Lord. That even in the midst of chaos and destruction, there is hope that the one who quietly waits for the Lord will be vindicated, will have hope. Book of Lamentations, it's a great book. Now let's go ahead and transition to our next book in the writings corpus.